Hi folks, Florida Man here, and today I'm bringing you an after-action report on a PDT SuperPastis21 game. This time it's game 1D. Good evening, Oxmeister. You were in PDT 1D, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So, why don't you tell the audience which country you were playing?
So I played as Russia. I played Russia, I think, just once before. I'm fairly new to the game, so I've not played every country yet. Yeah, it's my second time playing Russia, and a country that I like playing. Seem to do well with.
Well, I love playing as Russia myself, and my very first game on the PlayDiplomacy website was as Russia, as it happens.
Okay.
And it is one of my two favorite countries to play, so I'm sure this will be fun. Why don't you tell me what you were thinking very early on as you were setting out your priorities and negotiating initially?
Yeah, sure. So as Russia, I like to... I don't mind either maybe playing the Juggernaut or Austria-Russia alliance, but in the previous game that I played as Russia, I played the Austria-Russia alliance, and that had gone well for me in that game, so I wanted to do that again. So that was probably my slight preference. So my thinking was arrange an alliance with Italy, because we can't hurt each other and only good things can come from that. And look to maybe partner with either Austria against Turkey or Turkey against Austria. And so I spoke to both Turkey and Austria, pitched the benefits, and I didn't get a kind of a firm reply from either of them really. Austria was definitely more talkative, spoke about a few ideas, seemed to be interested in a 3-against-1 on Turkey, but didn't really get any further into tactical thoughts or central distribution or anything like that. I did mention some of these things, but the Austrian player wasn't so just wasn't interested in talking about it just at this point. Kind of said, well, let's get to next year and then work out where we are. So the big issue really was Turkey was quite straightforward. We said, okay, let's bounce in the Black Sea and in the spring and then go from there. Austria, I wanted a DMZ in Galicia just to kind of kick things off really, and the Austrian player was kind of quite keen to do the DMZ without a bounce. So a little bit unsure really as to why he'd prefer no bounce. So I kind of asked about that, said that maybe I would go north, but I wasn't committed to that at this point. And we kind of, we left that in conversation while I discussed other things. And then, very late in the turn, I think he said, okay, you're free to go to Galicia. It's a DMZ. So I said, okay. But I wasn't really sure. So I guess I was just concerned. It wasn't really a kind of a firm reason to not bounce there. I couldn't see what he'd be doing with his unit. He seemed very friendly with Italy. So I thought, okay, trust Italy. What's he going to do? I've not said I'm going north. And so I just thought, well, if maybe he's working with Turkey, that would explain why Turkey's really quite quiet with me. And, I'm better off going to Galicia in that case. If he's not working with Turkey and it's quite genuine, then, somebody's got to be the target, right? That's interesting. So how was your, I don't know if you engaged in any diplomacy at this stage with England and Germany. Yes, I spoke to England. England was very talkative, quite clearly the sort of the chatty player on the board. Germany not as much, but good conversations. France also good conversations. France and England both seemed nice people. I thought, okay, I'll probably work with them at some point. But in Spring 01, it was they're a long way away, so not so much to discuss. I think Germany was just a case of can I have Sweden? Germany was saying yes, I'm going to Denmark, but no problem, you can have it. Which is never what you really want to hear, but you go along with it. Yeah, Germany's retaining the power to deny it to you, so. Yeah, absolutely. And Italy, I spoke to Italy as well. Italy was kind of quite openly saying he was new, his first tournament, looking to learn, and so I thought, okay, quite clear that he wanted to maybe play cautious. I said to him, I'm really interested in having a 3-against-1. Again, on either Austria or Turkey, and he didn't kind of declare a preference there, so we just agreed we'd hopefully cooperate, but nothing much more. It's interesting. As Italy, if Russia told me that, I'd immediately take Russia up on it and say that we need to dogpile on Turkey. Yeah, he was interested, but he didn't really declare, as I said, he didn't declare a favour. He just said, okay, that would be a good thing to do. And at the end of the turn, I was kind of thinking, okay, Turkey's not said very much to me at all, so see if I can get Italy to show his hand. And I said, oh, Turkey doesn't seem talkative. Are you getting the same impression? Just dropping a small hint, but he wasn't taking up. I think he probably just wanted to be very careful. Perhaps thought maybe I was in a juggernaut and would pass any information I get him on. So
interesting. And we see as the spring moves play out, you walk into Galicia unopposed.
Yeah, so I was I didn't really expect to get there. I knew it was a possibility. I thought it was maybe a sort of a 60-40. I was quite spooked as to why the Austrian was so keen on an empty DMZ. But yeah, I just thought I was better either way. If it was hostile, I was better bouncing in. If it was not hostile, then, as I said, somebody's got to be the target. So yeah, I got there, and straight away I sent a message to Austria saying, okay, look, I'm sorry, it was paranoia on my side. I didn't really think I'd get there. Still interested in working with you. Still really like the Austria-Russia alliance. Yeah, kind of thinking maybe I'd get a forgiving Austrian. Not so much.
This is the big problem with the Austrian position in general, is you can't really afford to bounce Russia in Galicia unless you really know Russia is going to Galicia, and it's really strongly preferable to have both of those armies free to try and take centers. You need to get at least Serbia, which means one army will be required for that.
Yes.
And you could use the other army to bounce in Galicia, but if you do that, you're not able to defend Trieste and get Greece. You have to pick one or the other, and or you also can only put one unit on Romania in the case that you wanted to have any chance of contesting Romania. So, Austria has pretty limited choices, whereas Russia usually you have the good fortune of not having to defend most of the time against a two-front attack, unless the diplomacy goes badly and England and Germany join against you, or Austria and Turkey decide to work together against you.
Yeah, I pretty much think the same, and I tried to sort of think of this from the Austrians' point of view, and I would probably be looking to bounce Galicia if I was Austria, unless, as you say, you have a really good negotiation with Russia, and there's a clear reason to do it. And I hadn't said I was going north, but clearly I didn't go north. So yeah, so I was there. I was just hoping that explanation would make sense to the Austrian, but no, he wasn't happy. He looked at it and thought, well, I've maybe got lots of enemies. He read the board as everybody being quite hostile to me. He said, okay, England's going after you, which I didn't really agree with, because I thought that was quite a sort of a neutral opening from the Russian point of view, and exactly what England told me that they would do. They would. And he also interestingly said that Turkey either have agreed to bounce me or they don't trust me, which was interesting, because at that point it told me that he's not talking to Turkey, or probably not talking to Turkey. So I thought, okay, this is not so bad. I can work with this. But I still was interested, because in having peace with Austria. So I spoke to Italy, and Italy straight away was like, look, the problem for me is Turkey. And I just wish he'd said that to me in the script. So, exactly as you say, he wanted to get rid of Turkey rather than Austria. But I only found out once I'd gone to Galicia.
Yeah, you didn't find out until you made the most anti-Austrian opening that is logistically possible for Russia in 1901. So we'll see how much the momentum here is destiny. Is there anything else about this season that you'd like to point out for the audience? Yes,
so that was the south. It was probably more interesting in the north. So after the moves, England and France got in touch. Well, it was initiated by England, opening a three-word message with myself and France, and proposed a Northern Alliance. So the idea being that we would start attacking Germany, and then we'd all kind of push down, basically. And yeah, it seemed like a really interesting idea, a bit unconventional. People wouldn't maybe spot it very quickly. And for me, having a friend in the north, particularly England, would give me a bit of breathing space. But clearly I'm going to have some wars in the south. So yeah, I thought that was a really good idea. I agreed to it. I didn't think that Germany would give me Sweden, mainly because I've gone to Galicia, and normally Germany kind of doesn't like Austria to be rolled over too quickly. And the German player seemed like a nice guy, but he just didn't have a lot to say to me as well. So that also made me think, okay, Sweden's maybe doubtful. So an early war with Germany might not be such a bad thing.
You've mentioned that you're not that experienced, but you do seem to have a pretty good base of knowledge about what is typical, for instance, for Germany here, it's fairly typical, you're correct, for Germany to be looking out for Austria's interests and trying to use Sweden's leverage. But I'm curious how you do that, or if that's just something you've already seen more than once.
Yeah, so it's, for me, this is a really interesting hobby. I only started playing last summer. My wife got me the board game as a present, and it kind of went from there. So I've looked at a lot of videos, I've read some articles. So I've tried to educate myself in the game to kind of make up, as it does, for my lack of experience.
Oh, excellent.
I think by now I've played half a dozen games on PlayDiplomacy. I had a few gunboat games before then. But yeah, just mainly from, and your videos as well, of course.
Thank you. Well, it sounds like your education is paying off with some general knowledge of this game.
Yeah, as I said, I think it's the only thing I can do to kind of, avoid learning painfully from experience. So, so far, so not so bad. So yeah, that was the negotiations with England and France. Germany, I was kind of at this point thinking, okay, I'm probably going to be hostile to them. But I did at this point think, okay, maybe I could use my knowledge that it is definitely an EF alliance. I think either Germany or France maybe told me that the bounce in Burgundy wasn't planned. I can't remember who. So I got the sense that Germany might think that there was an EF alliance. So I said to Germany, okay, what's happening with Sweden? Are we still good there? Have you heard anything else that, you could tell me from the West? I've heard that there's maybe an EF alliance. Just sort of slipped it in there, which, this caused a lot of upset to the English player, later in the game. But, I thought it could get in Sweden. And as it turns out, the German then wrote to me and said, okay, I think England and France are against me, so Sweden's yours.
Well, that's some good manipulation there.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this stage I still had planned to work with England and France, but I really wanted Sweden because I was in Galicia. I was realizing that I would probably be hostile to Austria and try and take an Austrian centre, but it's a 50-50. So maybe I get it, maybe I don't. Who knows what happens with Romania? Probably I get Romania, but a second build would be nice. So yeah, it was just a ploy to try and get Sweden. But I had still thought, okay, I'd probably go with the England-France alliance because that looked quite strong to me.
Well, sounds like you've got a really good grasp on everything that's happening on this board so far. You're kind of doing what Russia should do and influencing things that are happening and discussions that are taking place in all areas of the map. I think that's pretty key for Russia because you start out with units on both sides of the North-South stalemate line. You're capable of participating in events on multiple fronts, multiple wars, and it's kind of a waste if you don't actually do so. It kind of weakens the strong Russian position if you don't. But you're doing that. You're doing it right, I think.
Yeah, I think as you say, you've enabled to almost everybody really. So.
And going to the fall, I see you. You decide to, commit against Austria, frankly. I don't think there's really much of another way to put it. You decide to go for the open home center.
Yes. I had, as I said, I had thought maybe if the Austrian, had been quite keen to still work with me and quite convincing about that, I'd arrange peace, but it wasn't happening. So, yeah, for me, it was very clear. Either we agreed to do something together or I try and take a centre. And so I went for Vienna and, I got lucky.
Yeah, it's very good for you. Of course, Austria is also kind of lucky because Austria got Greece. So despite losing a home centre, Austria is going to have a build here. Could still be a formidable opponent.
Yes, potentially. I mean, I know at this point that I now need to keep Turkey on side. Unfortunately, I did message Turkey and say, can you not go to the Black Sea this time? But Turkey didn't reply to me, I don't think, before the turn deadline passed. And so did go to the Black Sea, but not a disaster because I've got a unit there. So I think there's no real problem if I can at least keep Turkey with me because I'm in Vienna, unit advantage. Yeah, should be okay.
Yeah. What's your diplomacy with Italy looking like right now? Because I know Italy had just said that Italy really wanted to pile on Turkey, and you were saying you wished he'd said that earlier, but...
So, I mean, I asked Italy if maybe he could broker peace with Austria and said, look, this is actually still my first choice. but it just didn't happen. I don't know how much he really tried, but it is what it is. And at this point, I was pretty much writing off any immediate, alliance or cooperation with Italy. I was kind of banking on Turkey, really, and the Northern Alliance.
Oh yeah, speaking of the North, I see that England and France do appear to be poised for war with Germany, and so I think that that's going according to what probably benefits you, right?
I think so. They were quite unnerved to see me get rebuilt. I mean, I was quite surprised. It was a possibility, but quite early on, they wrote to me and said, I think it was England, and said, okay, we're all a bit nervous. What are you going to build? And of course, I couldn't build in Sevastopol, so really the only question was, what would I build in St. Petersburg? So we discussed that, and France actually got in touch and said, maybe you could defer a build, give your allies a bit of confidence. And it's not a terrible suggestion. I kind of see where it's coming from. But the problem was that I think it was France, maybe in England, I can't remember who, was talking about deferring the build in St. Petersburg. So I was immediately again starting to think, okay, if I leave St. Petersburg empty, England could just walk in next turn. And if they walk in next turn, we've got a unit in the North Sea, that could go to Norway. So I was starting to think, okay, Germany's let me into Sweden, they've been good to their word. Everything that they've said now, kind of looking at it in the light of having been allowed to go into Sweden, seems to look good. Seems to look more favourable. So maybe Germany's the better ally.
And did you discuss builds with Germany at all?
Germany wanted St. Petersburg North Coast.
And we see that's actually what you build. So you've decided that best to throw in your lot for now with Germany, I guess.
Yes, that's right. There was a bit of back and forth with England and France, and I did think of saying, okay, look, I'm not going to leave St. Petersburg empty, but I could leave Moscow empty. It doesn't benefit any of us in any way, but I could maybe do that.
That's not really... that doesn't really help them at all.
No, but I just wasn't willing to leave St. Petersburg empty.
Well, I mean, if you actually wanted to continue working with them, you could build in Moscow and moved that unit to St. Petersburg, just in case. Or you could have built an army in St. Petersburg that would have been less threatening.
Yes, and an army was suggested by England, and I did think of that as well. It felt like that was a compromise which they didn't really want to make. They would have done it because it's better than the North Coast Fleet. But it would have been something we would have done, unenthusiastically. So, I weighed it up and I threw my lot with Germany.
Yeah, I think that was probably, I mean, looking at this, I feel like this is a strong position for you. And honestly, I probably would have made the same decision.
Interesting. Yeah, it was a close one. It really was. Because I could tell that England and France were clearly the best communicators on the board. I liked that. I thought we could have gone quite a long way. So it genuinely was a very close call. But yeah, I agree with you from a tactical and strategic standpoint, it was probably best to go to Germany.
Another thing is that France's builds are both fleets. So, do you have any idea what's up with that?
So about, I think maybe half an hour before the deadline, I was getting frustrated with talks with England and France. I was aware that I'd gone to Galicia against Austria, and so I thought, okay, I don't want to appear really unreliable here. So I just said, okay, let's just shelve these talks for now, because we're not getting anywhere. And wanted to clearly kind of give them some sort of pre-notification that, okay, we weren't going to be going ahead with the alliance. I think maybe the fleets were a response to that.
Interesting.
Both of England's builds are fleets as well, so.
Well, England's builds being fleets make a lot of sense. I mean, for purposes of defeating Germany.
Yeah.
Whereas France's fleets being built, are not for that. And I think this is suddenly a very bad situation that England is in, because England's now surrounded by hostile powers.
Well, it looks that way. And I would be inclined to agree. However, France and England were saying more or less the same things to me in their messages. They were both making the same requests. They sounded very coordinated. it was another thing that made me go with Germany, because I thought, okay, I'm probably going to be the third wheel here.
Well, all of that's before France builds 2 fleets, though, right?
Oh, yes, it is, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so I'm just saying right now, after that, like, England's situation is terrible, no?
Yeah, I would give you that, but I just knew that France and England were close, so I wasn't counting anything just yet.
Yeah, I mean, after the builds, what was the conversation like?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't great. England was upset. There were messages on the public press and messages on the private press. I sort of made a joke and just said, well, we've all built a lot of fleets. I guess we better put them to use unless you want to, go to the Mediterranean.
Oh my gosh.
It was clear that, bridges were completely burned by that time.
So what did you work out for the spring?
So for the spring, I thought, okay, clearly I had to attack Norway while I could. Germany was willing to cut the North Sea for me. So I thought, okay, the only thing I can do. England was really active on the public press, and I was quite sort of concerned that England would be an influence with everybody else on the board. So, my priority was weaken England as fast as I possibly could. So I ordered to attack Norway, support from Sweden, and Germany cut the North Sea. That was the main thing in the north. In the south, I decided, okay, here we see it. In the south, I decided to move to Budapest. I think that was maybe to get my units more closely together.
Yeah, I think that's wise. It's always best to concentrate your forces when possible. I see that Turkey had made an interesting choice of building an army and is now just supporting himself to hold in Bulgaria and, I don't know, waiting things out. It looks like Turkey turtled up. Has there been any dialogue there?
A little. So that's a really good point. In the build phase, probably the most concerning thing for me was the Turkish build. Seeing the army go there. I can't remember if I discussed it with him. I'm sure I would have, kind of maybe recommended a fleet, but just being so sure that he was going to build a fleet there. The army was a bit of a shock, and because surely it can only go to Armenia unless it's going to sort of keep backfilling. But I don't think I got a response. In fact, I'm sure I got no response as to why Turkey made that build. Hence, I moved to Ukraine just to hedge my bets, really.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, and you're still able to defend Warsaw, even though Austria snuck into Galicia, and you've got some options with that army. It's better than having a unit in Galicia for defensive purposes, but it does look to me as if without having Turkey as a clear, reliable ally, you might start to face some adversity in the south. Although in the north, you're very strong. Yes,
I agree completely. At this point, I was thinking, okay, there's some problems here with Turkey. Turkey's really not communicating with me. After the spring, I could see that he wasn't necessarily hostile, but yeah, just as you said, just turtling up and maybe waiting to come down one way or the other. So again, I thought, okay, let's try and discuss with Austria, maybe making peace again. So these are spring moves, right? Spring or two.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the fall, I speak to Austria and say, okay, look, we should really be making peace. Turkey's not helping me out. I'm willing to make peace, focus on the north, which is genuinely what I wanted to do. And said to Austria that if we were to make peace, what he had to do was attack Budapest with all 3 of his units, and Galicia being the moving unit, so that I would free. Galicia would be a DMZ again. And I said to him, I said, if you do that and Galicia is a moving unit, I'll support Budapest with Romania, so you've got to use all 3. But if you do that, I won't be treated to Trieste.
That sounds like a bad deal for Austria.
Yeah, well, that's why he doesn't go for it. But it was a genuine offer. I didn't really want to just walk out there because the dialogue wasn't strong enough to make me suggest that if I gave him anything, it would definitely yield me anything. So yeah, I said he could dislodge me, I'll destroy, rebuild elsewhere. I think he was interested in it, but as we can see,
yes, Austria seems to have been more worried about Italy and unwilling to use the unit to support for that reason, perhaps because Austria does move to Trieste and bounce Italy's move that was actually aimed at Trieste. I don't know why Serbia didn't try to support Galicia into Budapest, because Austria did move Galicia Budapest, and it doesn't look like Serbia actually did anything this season.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I don't think I noticed that at the time. I thought at the time, I must have missed this, I thought at the time that there's a bounce in Trieste, and I thought he'd asked the Italian to self-bounce him as a kind of way of, he'd misunderstood my message, thought he could attack with 2 rather than needing all 3.
Maybe.
Yeah, I thought he was cutting off retreat.
I could have believed that maybe he'd misunderstood your message, but it seems like maybe Austria was at this point actually worried about Italy. It's hard to be sure, but a lot of Italians, if they see Austria kind of on the back foot, will just take advantage and try to finish Austria off real quickly and snatch whatever dot they can.
Yeah, I think I agree now, looking at it, that was probably the case. But I was working really hard with Italy in the background and just really trying to either get Italy to either get Austria on side for me or to commit to actually fighting Austria. I didn't mind which, as long as we could do one of the two. And I'm not really kind of getting anywhere with that. Italy seemed to be close to Austria, but not in a way that was actually helping me, mend any fences. So, actually, it does look like there's some hostility developing early on.
Yeah, this is a very good situation for you, I will say. The map, as it currently stands, you've been very successful, effective, and even in places a little bit fortunate. Because normally in a situation where Turkey isn't really cooperating with you, they would be working with Austria. Instead, it almost feels as if the Turkish player is gunboating it or something, because the Turkish player could be doing something to help Austria, or attack you, or just anything, could be doing anything that would be effective, and instead Turkey is just sitting there like a bump on a log, supporting units to hold.
Yes, I think we were all kind of trying to figure out what Turkey, what the strategy was, what he was doing. Most people felt that Turkey was loyal to me, and it was kind of some strange disguise of some sort. But Italy certainly thought that, I think, and I was trying to say, look, I've no idea, and I didn't.
Yeah, it's some very strange Turkish behavior, but all of everything weird and everything that's happening, I feel like, is kind of going in your favor at least. That's important.
I think so. I mean, there's some good breaks. I have to say, during the game, I was probably a bit more pessimistic. I was looking at this thinking, okay, if Turkey comes on side with Austria, because there's a lot of pressure coming from the West, England's been quite influential, clearly has Italy, or has some influence over Italy. And if Turkey comes on side, then my situation is probably not going to be so good. Eventually, the combined force of Austria and Turkey with Italy, not being hostile to them, would roll me back.
What influence are you seeing England have over Italy? I'm curious.
I see it for certain in the next term. There just seems to be a lack of trust, maybe not unreasonably, from Austria and Italy towards me. And I just got the feeling England was, as I said, was quite active on the public press, were quite charismatic messages, quite long messages, and I just had the feeling that they weren't working with me. The feeling of the board was very much a kind of me versus England, with everybody else sort of picking sides. So I put them in the other camp.
I believe I'm familiar with the English player, and the English player is very resourceful. So this is a really bad situation for England. England looks like England should be on their way out. Like, this should be her last stand, because there's a fleet outside of Liverpool. There's a French unit in Belgium now, and a Russian unit in Norway, and England should not really last much longer. This should be the final chapter in the English story.
Yes, I agree. At this point with the French fleet, maybe in the season before, I can't remember which, but I messaged France and said, look, if you want to pivot, if you want to go for a sea line, we're all in really good positions. I'm sure I could work a piece with Germany, and why don't we do that? And look, you tell me what centres you want, and we'll do a fair deal, something along those lines. And I got quite a strange message back from France, kind of saying, look, I'll attack you when I see fit, not when it suits you. And at that point, I kind of thought, okay, England and France are really close, and those fleets are just really genuinely coming to help England, which is what I feared, actually, when I saw them moving that way, and they were.
Sometimes when I play with the English player, I think that the other players are under mind control. but that's just a level of persuasion that only a few people I've ever played with are capable of, and the few less than a handful of players that I've encountered who are like that are top players. But even if England and France are like completely in sync, I don't think it's enough to save England in this game, or to save their position in this game, because as long as you and Germany are on the same side, you are, at this point, I believe you'll be a mightier force.
Possibly, but I think that all of the fleets. So England and France have got how many? 1, 2, 3. They've got 5. We've got 4 between us. But they've got they've got corner advantage, both of them, and so together they have double corner advantage, which is what makes it a good alliance. But they have no pressure at all from Italy, and Italy, for me at this point, was definitely more loyal to them, not wanting to upset them. And without Italy putting any pressure on France, they could put everything on the front line, and they had 5 fleets. So,
I mean, I guess it's an option for Italy to try and put pressure on France, but I don't know if it's a really good option, because Italy would be doing a lot of the fighting by itself and has only very distant prospect of gains. I think Italy's actual choice to try and go after Austria, at least in this season, it's probably a more natural choice for most Italian players, regardless of whether there's any English or French influence there.
Yeah, I think that's a fair observation.
I was also just going to note that Italy going after Austria could end up helping you.
Absolutely, I would have been happy if Italy had done that, because extra builds from Austria, I could have built another fleet in the north, and that would have allowed me to equal things up in the north. But yeah, my observation was basically that England and France could put every unit that they have on the front line, which is eventually what they do. And that's still quite difficult to break down the line of 5 fleets and I think 3 armies.
That's true, yeah. So going to the build phase, I see you get a new army in Moscow. I mean, I think, was one of your armies destroyed?
So we're 93.
No, one of your armies was not destroyed. It was because you got Norway that you get a new army here.
Yes. So I think I had to move to St. Petersburg in the previous year because England was in Barents, and therefore I couldn't free St. Petersburg up for build. So yeah, Army Moscow was, I think, my only choice anyway.
Yeah, I believe you're right. And at this point, what are your conversations like with Germany, with Austria, with Italy, with Turkey? I know that England and France are your enemies now.
Yes. I think at this point with Germany, Germans. The German messages were very very brief, consistent. I would always hear back, but they would be maybe can Norway support Perygl into the North Sea or something like that. So that was just quite consistent. Turkey had got in touch and said, okay, I should have built a fleet. That was just an error. So Turkey seemed to be on side. Really, the effort was with Italy. By this point, clearly I was fighting Austria. We hadn't managed to find any way to be at peace, and it didn't even look necessarily like the best option. So I was just trying to flip Italy onto my team, basically.
Well, that's probably a good step for you. I don't think it was necessarily in your interest to make peace with Austria, nor do I think that there was much effort on either side for that. So over the spring, then, I see you do support yourself further into Austrian territory. You get into Serbia, while at least for now losing Budapest. Do you know why Italy moves into Trolia here?
I don't know. And the move to Greece, I think, was a little bit of a surprise because I've been trying really hard to get Italy to attack Austria, and it wasn't something that Italy said to me he was going to do, because I would have very much welcomed it. So I was not sure whether maybe it was some strange deal that Austria would allow Italy to have a build from Greece.
Well, considering that Austria seems to have tried to move into Trieste last season, and is convoyed into Greece this season, I suspect there were no deals, and that Austria is just under attack from both sides with no coordination.
Yeah, it looks that way. So I'm quite happy when I see these moves, and I think, okay, fantastic, the Italian player's finally on side. So I message Italy and say, absolutely great. What's the plan? And then I don't hear back, or at least I don't think I hear back, which is strange, because I thought clearly, those moves had to be, or almost likely anyway.
Definitely.
Definitely.
They're anti-Austrian to the extreme, to the exclusion of all other possibility. And the only thing that I find confusing is the same thing you find confusing, which is, why is Italy being silent? And I think the answer is, Italy doesn't particularly want to partner up with you just yet, doesn't want to commit to that necessarily. Maybe Italy even thinks that they're going to conquer Austria and then work with Turkey against you. I'm not sure. But Italy certainly has been able to make the advancements they've made so far, just into Tyrolia and Greece, but the advances they've made so far have been without any help, so maybe Italy figures that they can take the rest of Austria without help as well. It is strange, though. This is not a normal play style for Italy.
Yes, I agree. And I think that's exactly what it was. I think Italy was wary of working with me, for all the reasons of attacking Austria, England being very influential, and France as well, and also just a fear of Turkey. I think Italy really thought that there was a juggernaut, to be talked about on the press. It really wasn't the juggernaut happening, but yeah.
Yeah, the juggernaut usually does not have a four-center Turkey at the beginning of 1903.
Yes.
Because if I'm Turkey in a juggernaut, I'm absolutely the one getting Serbia, first of all. And I would certainly not be at four centers still at this point, unless something in our alliance has gone very wrong, as something like Austria and Italy have outmaneuvered us and they are allied, but that's not what's happening here, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, I was still trying with the Turkish player. I was really trying to say, okay, look, I think I moved to Serbia in the end, but I was trying to offer support for Turkey, although I think that my support could be cut. But nevertheless, I was just trying to get something going with Turkey. But yeah, Turkey was just, turtling up, as you say.
Yeah. Elsewhere, I see that France moved out of the mid-Atlantic Ocean. Now, I think that that's a significant move because it's not really necessary for the fight with you and Germany. And I think that the function of that is to make France less threatening to England and Italy. Because France could have moved that unit into Irish Sea, or could have moved that unit south, or could have kept it in mid-Atlantic as an option, a sword hanging over their heads, but France chooses to bench it, essentially, and make that unit useless.
So I agree that that's probably was part of it. I mean, I saw ahead. When I saw this move, I was pretty sure that within a turn there would be a unit in Picardy to support Belgium, so that they could still support the North Sea from the English Channel, or Belgium from the English Channel, but have an additional support in Picardy.
I suppose so. I just don't see how that's necessary. I mean, maybe it's just like they're devoting everything they can to defense, but these units are not they're not being used in a way that is offensive in any way, and your offenses are too weak to make this necessary, this devotion of units. So it's just interesting to think that maybe England convinced France to devote so much to defense that France will probably not be able to capture a single center for many years if the status quo remains as it is.
Absolutely right. And I think that's exactly what it was. It just seemed to be a sort of an all-out war between myself and Germany and England and France, and everybody was just throwing everything at a different line. We're kind of not really, I mean, I'm sure everybody was thinking about the plans, but getting sidelined really for this conflict.
Well, going to the fall season, I see that this is kind of, what it appears to me at least, to be kind of a low point in your war in the south. Turkey's still not helping you. Turkey's still just supporting himself to hold, like this is, I don't know, like this is gunboat again. And you lose Serbia, you don't retain Budapest either. And so Austria, although having lost Greece, Austria is finally sort of whole again. And
with help from Italy.
Yes, with help from Italy. That is interesting. yeah, for some reason, Italy decided to partner up with Austria now, and maybe the Greece move was coordinated after all. Although I still would be surprised if it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think it was. Yeah, this was obviously not what I was hoping for. I hadn't heard from Italy, so it's a possibility that something like this happens. This was what I considered to be my first sort of mini stab from Italy, and he gets in touch straight away and said, "Look, I'm sorry. I know you're disappointed, but France was having a go, or something like that. I don't know. It was something to do with something that France had said to him, that he had to support Austria. So, yeah, that was the explanation.
Makes a lot of sense. France did move that fleet away from Italy. That probably was something that France offered to do in exchange for something, and either England or France has successfully negotiated with Italy so far. And Italy maybe is just seeing how large you are and how everyone else is freaking out about Russian strength, and understandably wants to counteract that and sort of stop the leader.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably. That would be good analysis. But yeah, that definitely seemed to be the cause. And I've been telling Italy, look, France is just playing about, in the Mid-Atlantic Ocean. He's going to turn around and suddenly you're going to have several units on you. And obviously that didn't happen because France moved all his units to the front line against me.
Yeah, now France is all in against you. So any argument that France is a threat to Italy will probably be completely futile now.
Yes. So at this point I decided I need a different message to the Italian because it's just not working. So I just basically say to the Italian that if we can now take these Austrian centres, you can get some builds. France is absolutely miles away. Norwegian Sea would take so long to get back to a defensive position. There's really an opportunity here. You can take a couple of units from Austria and walk into the French centres with the builds. And it seems like the Italian player's on side. It seems like he wants to do it. He messages me saying he was a little fed up with messages nagging him to do other things that he didn't want to do. He was tired of Austria wasting time or something like that. So it seems like progress is being made despite the setback of Serbia.
Well, is there anything else about this season you find noteworthy? I do see that Germany got into North Sea, so there's a little bit of forward progress there. Anything else?
Not that I remember. Germany gets into the North Sea. We've been trying to do that for several turns. Yeah, I think the main thing really, Turkey had just holding, so that's not changed. The main thing was just my focus. I know was just try and flip Italy, get Italy seriously on side, and something can be done.
I think it's clear that's what you need in order to make any further progress against Turkey or Austria or anyone other than Germany. The only power you can attack right now without any kind of help would be Germany.
Yes, and Germany are my only buffer really from England and France. And the last thing I want to do is get them powerful because I know that they would love to come and attack me.
I think they would hold a grudge.
Yes.
So build phase, nothing. You don't have any new builds. So is there anything about this season you want to highlight, or this phase?
So what phase are we in now?
This is the build phase, I think, of 1903.
Okay, 1903. So I think I have to take a unit off because I get Serbia destroyed.
Oh yes, you lost Ukraine. You took Ukraine off.
Yes.
Interesting.
I had an army there. I don't think I really needed that much. I disbanded Ukraine. It's I don't want to disband anything in the north. So
you chose to disband Ukraine and keep Albania. Interesting.
Yes, because I was really trying to negotiate with both Italy and Turkey to get my way back into Serbia.
Interesting. And going to the spring, how did these events come about? Where you and Italy do attack Austria? Did Italy finally yield to your arguments?
I think so. We spoke quite a lot, and I just really kind of, I suppose, pitched my case for why it would be beneficial to Italy. And I also offered a lot because, I wasn't getting through. So I said, look, you can have Greece, you can have Serbia, and you can have Trieste. That's two more builds on top of Greece to get new units and go and take Marseille and Spain, which I thought was a good offer.
Yeah, it's not a bad plan.
And it seems that it works. So the idea so to start with, Italy walks into Trieste. I think he must have arranged with Austria for Trieste to go to Albania, and supports me into Serbia.
Yeah, poor Austria. Just when they thought that they had a shot, and they really did. If Italy didn't decide to follow through with attacking them, but now they're just in really big trouble. And Turkey continuing to support himself to hold. Other than Italy turning on Austria, I don't think there's anything revolutionary about this season, so let's go to fall. And here's some interesting stuff happening. It looks like you moved out of Serbia into Budapest?
Yes.
And Italy gets Serbia.
Yes, so that was a pre-agreed plan with Italy. I think the extra centre was influential for Italy, so I said, okay, I'll move to Serbia, to Budapest. You can backfill Serbia, and then I would like Vienna, in the next year. And honestly, I think that was a good deal. Honestly, is what we're saying.
Yeah, I think what you've offered Italy is very tempting, and Italy is very fortunate that Turkey is not on your side, so that Italy could get the benefits of the Austrian collapse instead. And also as a result of this, because thanks to your arguments, Italy is now poking a hole in France's defense, Germany gets into Burgundy. So the Anglo-French coalition is really fallen apart now, because France has to defend against Italy, and by comparison, defending against Germany and helping England is not quite as important necessarily.
Yes, that's right. And the other two other interesting things. So I'd asked Italy to go to Gulf of Leon as a favour in return. So Italy starts to move against France. Or put pressure on France, I think was the idea. And I felt really good when I looked at these moves after the season resolved. So I thought, okay, everything's now coming into place. Until I saw the Turkish move to Armenia.
Oh, it's that's annoying, but it's strange. Turkey waited such a long time to do anything useful that now it's kind of pointless, because you're going to build presumably an army in Moscow. And yep, I'm correct. And now Turkey cannot successfully attack Sevastopol. So
yes, I had wanted to build in St. Petersburg. Maybe that wasn't the best build. I think that it was such a stalemate in the north and so frustrating that I thought, okay, I've really got to just try and get that decisive third fleet and see if that helps me blast through, and then surely once we kick the door down, so to speak, the house will fall down. That was my thinking. So I did really want to build in St. Pete's, but
it could have been right. I mean, but you had to build the army because of Turkey suddenly becoming seemingly aggressive against you. And
yes.
If you had gotten an extra fleet, that might have made a big difference. You would have had a unit in the Barents that could have potentially gotten you into Norwegian Sea or something, and then they'd be on the defensive for the rest of the game, maybe. But as things stand, I guess the tide of this war isn't going to shift just yet. At least not in the very, very north. Although I think Germany advancing into Burgundy is a nice forward step.
It is, yes. It's just a real shame that I couldn't get the build. And that was really frustrating. The war doesn't advance because I had to make a defensive move with Moscow, and I was quite unhappy with the Turkish player at this point. I didn't receive any communication about Armenia. I messaged him and said, "What's going on?" And the most frustrating thing is that I didn't hear back from him until the spring. So I was hoping in the build phase he would say something to me, because I hadn't understood a lot of his moves, and if he would have said, it's a mistake or something like that, I might have believed him.
What does he say in the spring?
In the spring, he says it was just to throw everybody else off guard or something like confuse the others, I think.
Oh my God. The Turkish player in this game.
Yeah, he seemed like a nice guy, but I couldn't understand a lot of his decisions.
Yeah, none of this makes any sense. I think that, I understand the thought processes behind all of the other players' moves, but the Turkish player almost feels like he's playing a different game.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, and I wish he'd said that in the build phase, because with everything that had preceded it, as I said, I may have believed that. It would have still been quite hard to leave Moscow empty and trust that, he wouldn't go for the attack on Sev.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust him.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say without not giving that message. But yeah, in the absence of that, I have to go Moscow.
And that makes sense. And the spring, I see you and Italy continue your advances against Austria. Really, it's just you getting into Vienna and you supporting yourself to hold in the south. This is really kind of just finishing Austria off, and Italy beginning to reposition against France a little bit. France, meanwhile, is now throwing everything toward a southern defense and kind of disregarding the fight with Germany.
Yeah, I think France wanted to surface game, but the big problem here is the Austrian move to Bohemia. So I had realised that if Italy was meant to support my attack into Vienna. So the previous year we'd agreed that he'd then support me to Vienna, and hence I moved there. I did see before that the Austrian could retreat to Bohemia, and that was Munich under pressure. And I did think about maybe waiting until the fall, but I just wasn't sure that Italy would actually, in the fall season, actually honour his move, which in fact it doesn't. Yeah, I went for it anyway. I said to the Germans, just be aware, Austria could retreat to Bohemia. Make sure that you've got cover for that. And I thought the German might ask me to wait. Would have been a reasonable request. But anyway, Austria just moved to Bohemia. He just walked out.
Very peacefully. Austria saw the writing on the wall and knew that there was no chance that they'd still be in Vienna at the end of the year if they just sat there. So figured they'd play mercenary and try and see if they can get support into a center or cause some chaos.
Yeah, it seems, and that was a real shame, because otherwise everything is going really well, as you observed. France is now moving back to fight Italy, which is great, because we can break through the north, apart from this unit in Bohemia, behind lines. Now putting pressure on Munich and Berlin.
Okay, and going to the fall, I see that Austria decided to make one last move out of spite toward the Russian ally of Germany, not even being able to strike at you, just goes after your ally instead.
It seemed that way. I mean, to me in Germany, it looked as if France would support Austria in, because surely Austria wants to pick up more survival points, and he could have stayed in the game a couple more years with Germany's commitments. So it seemed logical from that point of view, and the fact that I could have got support from Vienna, which I wish I did, but we kind of just thought, okay, France will support Austria into Munich. And actually, England told me that was what was going to happen, just kind of in one of those ways in a message, which was kind of burying the detail on, Germany is going to have an Austrian unit in Munich, causing you problems next year. So that was a good piece of misdirection.
Yeah, that does not surprise me. That's just like England. And I wasn't surprised to see Austria supporting France, because frequently a one center power will actually have lost any desire to continue with the game, and also because I was thinking that if France offered support from Burgundy, that support could be cut by the German unit in Belgium, or the German unit in Ruhr, except for that the Ruhr unit should be going to Munich to bounce it. But the fact that the Germany themselves could cut the Burgundy support, to me meant that having France be the one offering support was kind of a less likely to succeed option.
He would lose Belgium probably, though, if he does that. He's got to support Belgium. I mean, France. I think France moves away in the end, but that's a big shout to put Belgium under threat as well.
I think he would have to leave Belgium, but Germany has Holland and could at least tap Belgium with that. And the only units that France has next to Belgium until after they move back to the Channel are Picardy and Burgundy. So, depending on what Germany thinks France is doing, Germany can be pretty sure that France is probably devoting that unit in Burgundy to attacking Munich or supporting into Munich, and so it's probably kind of safe to tap Burgundy.
Yeah, I think it was a good move. Good move by France.
Yeah,
I think Austria. I really thought that Austria would, because it's a tournament, it's a scoring system, so you get 1 point for every year that you survive. Would maybe be motivated by that. It's not many points, but
I don't know. I don't think it's worth that much just to survive if you're only on one unit. But that's because most of the time, like, half of the players in a game will survive, or 6 of the players in the game will survive. So it's definitely going to keep you in the bottom half of the tournament.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that Austria had that probably a lot of good conversations with England and France. There was kind of a solidarity there, I think, because they're all fighting me.
I mean, I certainly think that Austria's moves are motivated by spite toward you. I don't know how much conversation they had with England and France. I wasn't on the board, so I have no impression of it. But I would not be surprised if Austria had no conversation with them and still decided to do this, because all their trouble has been with you. And if they can get revenge on any one person at this point in the game, it would be you, I'm sure. You or Italy, but Austria doesn't have the option of doing anything to Italy.
I suppose from that motivation, from that that desire, well played. It was a good move.
Yeah, and revenge is one of the most common desires in diplomacy, I've noticed, unfortunately, or fortunately at times. I mean, and elsewhere, I think things are probably going pretty swimmingly for you and your comrade of Italy. You guys have taken Bulgaria off of Turkey now, and you're finally beginning to get rid of that, or shrink down that wild card power a bit.
Yes, that's right. And it really, the Armenia move, I've been really careful about not pitching to be anti-Turkey too much to Italy or Austria, because, as I said, if that works its way back to Turkey, that could be problematic, certainly early in the tournament anyway. But after Turkey moved to Armenia a year before, I just thought we just had to do something about them.
Yeah, got to solve this problem. So going to the build phase, I see you get a Northern Fleet, finally. I know you had been looking forward to that, and now you can hopefully actually advance. We'll see how well that goes.
Yes, so a little later than planned, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, France seemed to have defensive concerns, so it could still be useful.
Yeah, going to the spring. Oh, wow. Italy is very fortunate that France abandons Marseille and Spain. Abandons the defense of their most important centers, really, in terms of which centers France should be thinking about defending. France decides to commit to the north. I saw this before, and I didn't really get it, and now I think I sort of get it. It's because France has a strong connection with England and really wants to, focus on you, focus on that alliance, focus on Germany. But I'm just going to say it. This is a bad call.
Yeah, I agree from France's point of view. So England's strategy was basically to go to me and to say that you've got to stab Italy now. If you don't, we're going to throw everything to Italy. And look, here's the moves to prove it. And basically they were saying that you're going to lose the board top if you don't, turn everything around and focus on Italy instead. And so that's obviously that was successful with France. I wasn't really going for it at this point. I was still focused on making progress. I was concerned by it, but I kind of saw the upside that that may be the case, but France would have disbands caused by Italian captures, so that would be good as well.
Yeah, that could be very helpful to you. And I think the truth is that England and France know they've lost the military side of the diplomacy game now, and so they're trying to use the political side and the strategic. And it's an argument that, it's intelligent of them to make, but I don't know how seriously I take it at this point, because between them, they do have control over, 8 centers, something like that, but they're rapidly losing leverage over those places, and they certainly can't toss Munich to Italy right now. and they probably will never be able to toss Belgium to Italy. There's a good chance Italy will never get past the mid-Atlantic Ocean. And even if they tried to toss the English home centers to Italy, they probably wouldn't succeed. So, Italy can get quite large, but I don't think I'd be feeling very threatened either by their declaration.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something to start with. I wasn't too worried about. Italy does, as we'll see, Italy does continue to be successful, and then it does really become a problem because of picking up builds, and there's Turkish sensors, and he's positioned quite well to get those. So it does become an increasing point of leverage that they have.
Well, I see that Italy is continuing to advance, and yep, Italy is doing really well because Turkey is kind of defenseless. France has lowered their guard. Italy gets into Spain and Smyrna, so now with Marseille, that's 3 builds, and so this isn't the ideal situation, although it's still not actually bad for you.
So the problem that I think I had is that Germany was starting to, as you can see from the moves, basically getting a little bit better with me. So I think Germany felt that probably I shouldn't have taken Vienna. I should have bounced Bohemia. Then I should have. He asked for Sweden. And
how are you supposed to know Austria was going to move to Bohemia?
I thought it was possible.
I mean, I don't think it didn't seem very likely, and I don't think it was actually necessarily the.
But he could retreat to Bohemia. So if I had taken Vienna, because I was meant to have Italian support, he could have retreated. So he would have been there the same season anyway.
Well, Austria could have retreated to Tyrolia as well.
Or Tyrolia, but I mean, there would have been a unit on unit. So I mean, to be fair, the German play didn't say that to me. I just think that was the first point of frustration. And then I've been promising Germany, Sweden for pretty much all the game, or rather saying, look, at some point when you get into the North Sea and it's safe to take it, you can have Sweden for an extra build. Because I'm getting built elsewhere. So after the French unit got into Munich, he says to me, okay, now I'm asking for Sweden. The problem was that, so I moved to Tyrolia the season before. Italy had also offered to, Italy offered to move to Tyrolia and I would go to Bohemia. And he said, no, I don't like that, which I kind of understand, but it was a genuine offer to help him. To try and get rid of the raider, and he's he's wanting to take units off the front line. He's wanting to use Helgoland defensively now, Denmark to go to Sweden, and so I'm just thinking, okay, this is not a good deal to give him Sweden if he's just going to take everything off the front line.
Yeah, it sounds like Germany's starting to become a liability.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he'd been supporting my moves all game, and I can understand. He seemed like a nice player, very loyal. Can't really fault him from that point of view. I think some of my players would make me selfish.
I mean, I think Germany's been loyal, but he's been under attack, and you were the one who helped him. He's been loyal to the person who was helping keep him alive. So I don't give too much credit for that. But yeah. I mean, he's had to be patient, but I guess my feeling toward Germany would be, really, Germany? It's at this moment when we might actually start to make some progress that you're now trying to get Russian dots off of me because I at some point said that you might be able to have one.
I think that for me, I wouldn't be able to control what that German unit would do. We were coordinating quite well on what the fleets would do, but he wasn't really saying what his armies would do. And what he was doing with his armies probably wouldn't have been what I would have done. I was trying to say, look, you've not got enough units to squash it. It'll take several years. Just follow it round with one unit, and the most you can have is one centre. Let's keep everything on the front line, and we can make progress. Which, I don't think he wanted Sweden. So he didn't actually say to me that he would try and take Sweden by force, but I preempted that maybe he'd do that. And the key thing is that with England and France at this point, I thought, okay, I want to leave the door open to maybe come to peace with England and France, because I was getting unsure about what Germany would do. Italy was getting quite big. And so I said to England and France, well, England and France were really pushing me for peace. It was more them coming to me for quite obvious reasons. And so I said, okay, look, neither of us trust each other. what we can do, it's kind of like the Austrian situation. I said, what we can do is I can attack you in a very limited way this turn that will still, I'll be able to kind of go to my allies and it won't be obvious that we've done a deal. But we built some trust in the meantime. So I said, okay, I'll attack Norwegian with just one unit, and that will allow France to go back and defend, which wasn't met very enthusiastically. But right at the very end of the turn, I said, look, unilaterally, I'm going to do this. I will only move one unit to Norwegian Sea. You're free to defend yourself, and look, let's see if we can do something next year. Because I did think, okay, things could go downhill with Germany. I want to keep the door open. They obviously wanted to survive in the game, and yeah, that's what we did. And as you can see, France moves back, and England bounces me as agreed.
Yeah, I do see that, and that's good for you. Your negotiations with them were successful, doing everything that you needed them to do for this season, because now France could defend against Italy advancing further very effectively for a long time, if that's what France wants to do.
Yes.
Going ahead to the build phase, I do see that I see that France had retreated to Berlin and then destroyed that unit, which is a good sign, because destroying that unit instead of one of the units that's closer to France makes it harder for France to fight you and easier for France to fight Italy.
Yes. So as soon as the fall moves resolved, and Germany had tried to take Sweden with force, but I'd supported myself into Sweden from I think Finland. As soon as that happened, and we all followed the plan, England, France, and myself. At that point, I think it was really clear that okay, we were going to form an alliance, the Northern Alliance, which I'd kind of kiboshed earlier in the game, was now going to happen. I was quite keen for France to defend against Italy, because they really were, just throwing in dots. And of course, the scoring system is such that you have to get the top, you have to top the board and then top it by I think more than 3 centres. So I was looking at that, thinking, okay, if this carries on the way that it's going, Italy could get 2-3 centres ahead of me, and I'll get a pretty mediocre score. So yeah, at that point, it was really clear that I had to work with England and France. And I think the thing that was beneficial, I realised in the chats as soon as we started talking about strategy, that they disliked Italy quite a lot, probably as much as they did me. But basically, they were just trying to peel one of us away from the other. And I thought I had an army advantage in the Balkans. So
let's see. Yeah, I think you have a good point, actually. At this point, Italy, I don't think Italy is a very strong military threat to you, but Italy is because Italy is mostly naval and can't really fight you with fleets. And I mean, like, out of all the units Italy has 7, I think. Yes, 7 fleets and only 4 armies. Right now it's 7.
Yeah, no, that's right. So basically, in the build phase, Italy put a fleet in Venice, a fleet in Naples, and an army in Rome. Initially, we all thought, so myself, England, and France, okay, it's going to be 3 armies from Italy, because he's already got quite a lot of fleets, and he must be worried about the Balkans. So I spoke to Italy, and it was probably, I think, the key piece of negotiation in the game. And so I said, okay, look, Italy, the previous turn was meant to allow me to backfill Bulgaria and take Constantinople. He instead took Smyrna, so it was the third sort of mini stab, if you like, from Italy in doing that. And I said, look, okay, enough's enough. Fair enough, I understand why you've done what you've done, but if you want to give me some confidence, I really need to see some favourable builds. If you build a fleet in Venice, then fine. That will allow me to not focus on you, basically. And that wasn't, that was a genuine offer at the time. I did want to see Italy build a fleet, and had he done that, my thinking was still to put maybe some pressure on Italy, but not necessarily go into all-out war. But he does that, and he also built a fleet in Naples as well, which are just great builds to see.
Yeah, that makes it much easier for you to attack him. because those fleets are completely useless for defending Serbia, and they are not all that great for defending Trieste, really, because there's only one fleet positioned near it, unless Italy decides to put a fleet in Adriatic as well. And most importantly, those fleets can't attack any centers that you hold. So there's absolutely no downside to you in attacking Italy, unless Italy has more armies on the front, and Italy has exactly 2 armies on the front with you.
Yeah. Yes, and so we had a deal around Bulgaria, so Bulgaria is meant to be mine, it's meant to be mine for many turns. And so I did think, okay, look, my priority is Bulgaria. I don't need to have an all-out war with Italy to get the win here. If I get Bulgaria, a couple of German centres, and allow France to actually defend Italy, then I can still top the board. I don't know what the numbers would be at this point, but I thought, okay, I could get a 12-11 or something like that. So it wasn't necessarily a plan to have a big war with Italy, but I think when I actually looked at the position, it was a case of, okay, I can now put some pressure on Italy.
Okay. Well, go into the next spring. I see you actually get that Bulgarian unit, or get that Bulgaria center that you were hoping for. I'm guessing that was with Italy's consent.
Yes.
You also simultaneously move into Vienna, and I'm wondering if Italy knew that you would go into Vienna and Galicia.
No, so this is, and he didn't know that I would attack Germany either. So this is the first, sorry?
Beginning of the stab.
Beginning of the stab. But it's still quite subtle, I think, at this stage. Anyway, that's how I sold it. So I said to Italy, okay, look, I need to get some of these German dots, games coming, to a conclusion. And I've had to agree some peace with England and France as a way to do that. So they might put a bit more pressure on you defensively, and I've moved some units to the Balkans. But look, this is not aggressive to you.
I don't think any player who's gotten to the size Italy has gotten would be unable to see that there's some danger to Italy now from all those armies.
But yeah, I've tried to sell this as a stab on Germany and not a stab on Italy.
Oh yes,
was basically my approach. And we maintained quite friendly relations. I think I had friendly relations with Italy the whole game. Really, he didn't do anything to help me in the first few years. But even at this point, he's like, okay, yeah, fine, no problem.
Well, I think you found. Sorry.
I was, no problem, but he kind of understood. I was saying I was acting defensively. He understood I was going to move units there, and yeah, as we see, he takes his own actions.
Yeah, I think you found the right tack to take, but I also think that I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that Italy would have believed you, but you have to try and deceive sometimes. Going to the fall, I see that Italy does move defensively against you, vacates Constantinople to try and kicks you out of Bulgaria, and but on the bright side, because Turkey moved back into Constantinople to make sure that he could try and retake it, you finally have the Black Sea, and elsewhere, England and France are not attacking you. They're not taking advantage of the fact that you're fighting Italy, which I think, honestly, might be a mistake on their part. It might be wiser for them to try and position to fight you now, given that that Italy will soon have to go east and try and fight you as best they can. But I can understand that England and France might think that the best place for them to make gains now is retaking those centers Italy took. But I think things are shaking out in the best possible way for you now, diplomatically and in terms related to that, because they could all be focusing on you now, and it seems as if really no one's focusing on you now except Italy. So that's the best of all possible worlds. There's no prospect of you losing the Black Sea again either.
No, I think with England and France, again, I'd offered a generous deal, so I'd said, okay, of the German centres, I think at this point Holland is French, but I said, okay, of the German centres, you can have Holland, Kiel and Munich, and work out between you how you split that. I'll be happy with just Denmark and Berlin. It was I thought that was a good deal. So I think that combined with just the problem of how many Italian units. I mean, there's four fleets and the army. Certainly the other way.
Yeah. Italy really needs to work out a deal with them of their own, because if Italy doesn't do that, it's pretty clear that this game is going to be very difficult for them very quickly. It's going to be an avalanche of Russian troops falling down toward Italy, and Italy will not be able to provide any relief for their besieged forces because of that position that Italy is having to put so many units into defending in the west. So we'll see how that plays out. I see you get a couple new armies here. It's not really a surprise. I can tell what you're going to do with it, so I won't even ask. You're going to go after Turkey and Italy. I'd be surprised to see anything other than that with those armies. I mean, you can also help against Germany, but I don't think that's really necessary.
No, not really. I only plan to devote, I think, one army and the fleet to Germany at this point. So, yeah.
And now you are going after Italy, and you're doing it openly, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Italy really suffering from having that fleet in Trieste instead of an army there, and you are in a prime position to continue to press forward against Italy for the foreseeable future, while Italy is dealing with a tangled mess in the West that is just not going to unravel itself anytime soon, as far as I can tell. And Italy's really fighting the wrong threat, perhaps.
Yes, I'd agree. I think it's the fleet that really hampers him here, because it can't help defend Serbia, and he doesn't have enough armies to defend Serbia. And it's also in his way as well. So he needs to get the other army, which is in Venice, to help him out. But he can't get that there because he can't vacate Trieste either. So I think he's just not got enough armies in the right place.
Yeah, this overcommitment to fleets is ending up becoming a fatal mistake. Going to the fall, I see that you take Bulgaria as well. So Italy is now smaller than you officially, I believe. Let me just make sure. Italy has 10 centers, and you have 13.
That's what it would be after the by the build phase. So I get 3 builds from those moves. I get 3 builds.
All armies.
Sorry?
Wait, no, you build a northern fleet. Oh no, you had a northern fleet. All armies for your builds. So
yes.
You can continue to double down on this thing that is helping you succeed now of fighting your land war with Italy, and maybe you'll get Trieste. Maybe you'll get 1 or 2 of the Turkish centers.
I mean, it's about as good as it gets, really. So in the previous season, Tyrolia had tried to support Rua into Munich, and the idea was that France could get an extra build in Paris, and that could put some pressure so that France could get Marseille. And that was the objective. But before that, I'd been asked if I would not take Berlin that year. I didn't need a third build because it was going to 1909. It's the last year, so there's only 2 more moves to play. So I didn't need to take Berlin, but I didn't want to not take a centre, which was crucial because we're.
There's no point in trying to be kind and build goodwill at this point. You just need to try and clinch the board top. And
I mean that was definitely my objective, but I was still trying to do France and England a favour here, because basically they had given me the board top by working with me again. So Munich didn't work out because Italy cut it. I'd said, in all our chat, look, Italy's not going to cut Munich. He's got other things to do with Venice. And of course Italy does cut Munich, so France doesn't get in. We've got an upset French player now.
Well, understandable, but France should know that when you're working with a person who's at the top and they are trying to maintain and increase their lead, this kind of thing's going to happen. Unfortunate, but the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must, I think is the expression. And I'm kind of amazed that that France is still cooperating with you at all at this point, honestly, because what I would expect is for France to think that you're going to support them into Munich, and then you actually just walk into Kiel or something in this season.
Yeah, I thought about that. Actually, Germany messaged me and said, okay, I'll support Berlin to Kiel. So yeah, maybe I should have done that. I was thinking at this stage that I was going to get a free, more than free centre ball top. So yeah, I was a bit soft here, I think, and did support France into Munich. Moved to Piedmont and said, okay, fine, you'll not get Marseille because my support can be cut, but if you support me, or rather, because France would pitch it to me, either it's a mutual deal. France supports me to Marseille, and they can have it.
Yeah, that's an interesting deal. If I were France, I don't know if I would have wanted to do it, but I do understand the reasoning. And also very kind of you to let France back into Berlin.
Yeah, as I said, at this point, I was clearly going to get all of the 51-point bonus for topping, and then topping it by more than 3 centres. So, I could have sat in Berlin and taken the support into Marseille, but it would have only been for 2 points, an extra 2 points, and I kind of figured that if he's going to support me into Marseille, not that I knew he would definitely do it, but I thought he would. That was fair.
Well, I just want to say congratulations on your board top here. And you scored a great victory for the Russians. And as you've pointed out on the PlayDiplomacy site, you are currently in the lead for the PDT SuperPastis. So do you have any final words of wisdom you'd like to share for my audience?
I'm not sure about wisdom, but yeah, obviously pleased to have got a good win. I think that it was a really strange board, as you observed. Some strange moves, but I think nevertheless it was always going to be, for me anyway, a game where either England managed to get the board on her side, or I could get a nothing on my side. And fortunately the latter happened. But yeah, I don't think I'll hold this lead for very long. It looks like game 1A, which I think by process of elimination we must be playing in, is going to get a better topper than me.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Indeed.
Well, thank you again for doing this conversation. I enjoyed it, and I'm sure my audience will be very entertained by the story of your victory as Russia.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's been interesting doing it. I've watched a lot of your videos, and very, very interesting content. So I look forward to watching many more.
I hope you enjoyed this diplomacy commentary after action report. And if you liked it, you know what to do. Like and subscribe, and check out my blog and my Patreon or Ko-Fi. I should note the people whose names now appear on screen are those without whom this channel and its growth, as it currently exists, might not be possible. So they have my thanks. And until next time, Florida Man out.